The Watergate matter was an inevitable outgrowth of a climate of excessive concern over the political impact of demonstrators, excessive concern over leaks, an insatiable appetite for political intelligence, all coupled with a do-it-yourself White House staff, regardless of the law.
That was former Nixon White House counsel John Dean in his 74 testimony. 73 or 74? I'm going to ask him.
Yeah.
He played a pivotal role in the Watergate hearings and President Richard Nixon's resignation. In just hours, John Dean will be back on Capitol Hill to testify before the House Judiciary Committee about the Mueller report this time. And CNN contributor John Dean joins us now. John, it's great to see you. What's it like for you to watch that old videotape?
Well, it's odd. I was actually trying to summarize my testimony at that point, and they stopped me very shortly after that and said, no, Mr. Dean, you must read that testimony, which was 60,000 words and would take 8 hours. Had I known that in advance, I assure you it wouldn't have been 60,000 words, it's been closer to 6.
So I think that date that you were there, that we just saw the video, was July 11th, 1974.
No, it wasn't. June 25, 73.
Oh, that's interesting, because you appeared before the Judiciary Committee on the date that I'm saying, right?
That's right. That
Okay.
was when I appeared before the Judiciary Committee in the House.
And today you'll be back there.
I'll be back
all
for
of
the
these
House.
years later. So tell us, I mean, we have your prepared statements here, but I would rather hear it from you. So tell us what your overarching message is to them.
There's a little nostalgia because I worked for that committee at one point, too. It's the first government job I had and rose to be the minority counsel of that committee. So I spent a lot of time in that hearing room and know some of the fellows on the staff, but do not know any of the members anymore. What I'm going to try to do with the committee, I'm clearly not a fact witness, but I hope I can give them some context and show them how strikingly like Watergate what we're seeing now and as reported in the Mueller report is. So I've taken several examples from the Mueller report relating to obstruction of justice, which is their focus today, and looked at those and made the comparisons.
Care to give us a preview? Which do you think is the most apt comparison?
The most apt? Wow. That's a tough question. Too many are too similar, but the fact that Nixon was hands-on very early is just like Trump, hands-on very early. The firing of Comey was certainly not dissimilar from some of the actions that Nixon took. Nixon waded in and tried to influence the FBI investigation, as did Trump. So there are lots of comparisons.
Can I say, you say you were not going as a fact witness. There are those, and even our friends, Jeffrey Toobin, who've suggested that maybe this committee could be using its time in a better way than talking about Watergate. Maybe the time that this committee is holding these hearings should be used on witnesses who are part of the Mueller report. What would you say to them?
Well, the problem is, I think they'd like those witnesses too, but those witnesses right now are not available. They are stonewalling this committee. The Trump administration is making it as difficult as possible for anybody on the House side to do anything to learn about what their activities were or are. So I think they have to start somewhere. So a historical base to understand what is going on is a good foundation for them.
And one of those witnesses who you say is stonewalling, with whom you see lots of parallel, is White House counsel Don McGahn. And so since you shared that role with him, what do you plan to tell them about Don McGahn's role?
Don has said that he feels himself torn between two different branches of government, and that creates a conflict for him. And actually, it was my testimony that the ABA read during the Watergate hearings that rang a bell in Chicago, and they decided to revise their code of ethics. And they solved a lot of the problems that used to exist in representing an organization. That's why Don today represents the office of the president and not Donald Trump. And I think his loyalty is to the office and not the man, and that lowers the conflict considerably. He's got some ethic issues that I try to address.
So you do think he could testify? You don't think the privilege would cover him?
No, I don't think the privilege would cover him. There are two reasons. First of all, there's something called the crime fraud exception. And when there's any criminal behavior, that is not covered by any privilege, not by attorney-client privilege, not by executive privilege. And some of these are crimes he's talking about. The other is there has been a general waiver. The waiver occurred when Mr. Trump released for public consumption the Mueller report. And all those things that are in the Mueller report that relate to Don McGahn, he is now free to talk about.
President Trump called you a nasty name over the weekend. How do you think you will be treated by his allies on Capitol Hill today?
I haven't seen his tweet yet. He's called me nasty names before. I like that small club, actually, that I am in. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's a cue to his admirers that I'm not on his team, but I think they knew that before today.
I think it is interesting, though. It's a good question. You know, the Republican allies that the president has in that committee, I imagine, will go after you. What for, do you think?
It seems the theater of it all is what interests them. What I've tried to pay very close attention to are the rules of decorum of the House, where the House does not take the president's name in vain and or accuse him of things that he hasn't done, to be very careful about that. And I have gone out of my way to do that and was working on the statement last night to make sure that didn't happen.
It'll be fascinating to watch all of these years later, John Dean making an encore performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.